Hey there, JJ Meets World fans. Listen, today's guest is Phil Godel. You're really going to want to catch this episode because we talk about Phil's life and why Neil Diamond caused him to get a divorce. You're definitely not going to want to miss this. And Tucker and I talk about trophies, his dad's teacher voice, and so much more. It's all happening right here on JJ Meets World. You made a very wise decision to sit down and listen with us today.
1, 2, 3, 4.
J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure.
Yes, he is.
He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I don't have a lot of trophies at my house. And I've got things I consider trophies, but when you think of a trophy, if I said draw a picture of a trophy to 10 people, the thing that they would come up with, pictures of golden men and women bowling on top of columns colored with a wood base and a plaque. I don't have those. I've got a plaque that has a best actor for a state one-act play tournament from when I was in high school, but it doesn't say my name. It gave all the same one to all the kids. And gosh, do I have other? I don't think I have another trophy.
I don't think I've ever seen a trophy in your home.
Do you have any trophies?
The only trophy that I have, I won in first grade, and that you got it if you read over 50 books. We were all doing a reading thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had read 55 books, so I have that trophy. That's it.
Our guest today is an avid reader and makes me feel like I don't read enough. And so I wouldn't get a trophy for reading because I'm not reading enough books. I had at one point this year said I'm going to read a book a week. That was my goal, was get through a book a week. I got through 4 books.
That's a big goal. My goal is 20 for this year.
Just 20 books?
Just 20 books.
Well, are you choosing the books yourself?
Yeah.
Are you not having any outside influence on what you should be reading?
No one's telling me what I have to read. And I don't have like a real rule set as far as what books I will allow as part of it. It's more or less just, do I want to read this book? If I start reading a book and I don't like it, I don't feel like I have to finish it. But I have not been reading for a few months now because my mind has been somewhere else, and I'm just trying to get back into it again.
Let me recommend a couple of books I've read multiple times that I think people would enjoy.
Okay.
Number 1, Guru, My Days with Del Close.
You've mentioned that one a lot to me before. You've given that as gifts to people.
I have. In fact, I've probably owned 40 copies of this book, and I like to give them out as grad presents. They're great for people who are in improv because Del Close is the godfather of improv, modern day improv to most people, one of the founders of the Improv Olympic, IO now. And the book is unique in that it's told, the story of Del's life is told by a guy named Jeff Griggs, who was Del's personal assistant the last few years of his life. He got free classes in exchange for picking Del up and running errands with him later on in his life. And they formed this friendship together. And so you'll read a chapter that's about one of their excursions, which are hilarious. And then you'll read one about Del's life. And you find out amazing stuff about Del. Like, he was bidding on an old classic book at a book auction when he was in his early 20s. There's another guy bidding on the same books, and afterwards they kind of got together and they were chatting, and this guy pitched him this idea he had for a new self-help seminar series. And he says, I think that you'd make more money if you turn that into a religion. People like religions. Well, he was talking to L. Ron Hubbard. And
thanks, Del.
Yeah, right? And there's all of this stuff, and it's a funny read, and Bill Murray paid for Del Close's living wake.
Okay.
And so that's the kind of person Del was. He was the most famous person you've never met.
A living wake?
Yeah. So Dell was dying.
Okay.
And they had a living wake for him where people came and it's not a goodbye party. It was an opportunity for people to come and talk to him. And Dell taught Amy Poehler and the Upright Citizens Brigade and everybody who came through Second City and SNL. And it's just an amazing book. Guru, My Days with Del Close. I also love both reading and listening to the audiobook of Born Standing Up, which is Steve Martin's memoir of his time doing stand-up. And it doesn't dig into his movies so much. It digs into the time doing stand-up, where he was driving from coffee house to coffee house and maybe making $2, $3 for a set on his way through his rocket ship of a launch into stardom. It's a great book. I really, really dig it. Patton Oswalt also has a book called Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, which is part memoir, part original. One of my favorite parts of the book is where he's describing wines. And if you get a chance to read Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, read it and then listen to the audiobook version, because the way he gives the inflection on some of these things really changes the text.
Okay.
Gosh, I've read Misery by Stephen King 3 or 4 times.
Is that a big book? A lot of his books are thick.
It's not so much.
It's not like It.
No. Oh, God, no. In fact, this is probably like 180, 190 pages, maybe tops.
Okay.
It's a pretty fast read, and it's interesting because you're reading about an author while you're reading a book, so it kind of feels like you're getting pulled in, sucked into it. It's another book that I really have always loved and I could read over and over again. I mean, I've read a lot of books, but some of them I read over and over and over again. A book I like called Street Gang, which is it's like a series of interviews all mashed together about the creation of Sesame Street.
Oh.
Which is really cool. Now that's a thick book.
Yeah.
It's thick. What do they call that? Where it's a bunch of interviews that are, damn it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you right now.
It's because they do the same thing for Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
It's like
Like an omnibus.
a something history, like a tale, a history of tales. I don't know. But I guess I love reading about the entertainment industry. I love reading stories.
So you like reading, it sounds like you like reading nonfiction a lot as far as your interests. Do you read a lot of fiction?
I don't read as much fiction as other people do. Phil Godel, our guest on the show today, will read a book series. Like he read one called like A Wheel of Time, which is 19 or 20.
That's a lot. I tried reading that series. I started reading that in middle school because I liked fantasy worlds, and my older brother and my mom were both reading it. And so I got through the first 3 books, got halfway through the 4th one and put it down. And I have no idea if I'll ever be able to read those books again, just because the amount of time it would take to get caught back up again by rereading the things that I missed. Those books are huge. And he's doing world building. So at the back of every book is a massive glossary. So you're constantly going, shit, who is that guy again? And you got to go to the back and go, oh, okay, that's right. He was this tavern owner in this town on this coast. And so I like those kind of things, but sometimes it's hard to try even beginning to devour them.
I challenge the people who are listening to this podcast to send us a message on our Facebook, or you can tweet at us. I'm interested in knowing a book you've read more than twice, let's say, something you keep going back to that you can't get enough of. I know some people really love Vince Flynn, who's an author who does a lot of stuff about like military based things, like government under siege.
So if you have a dad, he's probably reading it.
Yes, in fact,
your dad will love this.
Do you know who introduced me to Vince Flynn?
My dad.
Your dad.
Yeah, I know. I know because when I go on road trips with my dad, he gets M is for Murder on tape, and then we listen to that for 12 hours.
Oh, I've read a couple Agatha Christie books. Although the second time you read it, it's not as fun now that
It's
you
been
know.
spoiled.
Now that you know what the red herrings and
I'm trying to think of a
MacGuffins
book
are.
that I've read twice. I'm trying to think of one. I mean, I know there have been a few. Like I did reread the first Wheel of Time book in an attempt to
Get back into
recapture
it.
it, but I couldn't. After that book, I was like, no, I'm good. I know that the one book that I want to read a second time, but I have so far been unable to, and I'll tell you why, is A Wrinkle in Time. And because I read that book, it was part of our curriculum. I want to say in third grade.
Yeah.
like way back in elementary school, and it was the first time I ever felt. I was later able to define the feeling as being surreal. Right, I was transported by this book, and it made me feel weird, strange things that I'd never felt before about this world and about time and how it ended. And then I've never read it since then, but I've been trying to track down a copy of it in a very specific edition, because you can get a copy of it anywhere, especially because the movie just came out. But
Yeah, you want the cover art.
there's a particular edition of it that was printed in, I want to say, mid-'70s sometime. And the very front of it is a painting of the winged horseman, where he's got wings for arms and he's sort of flying in the sky. And there's this green face behind him, and it's really eerie. It looks like fantasy art from the 70s or beforehand. I want a copy of that because I want to read that edition. I want to try to recapture what I felt as a kid. And I tried ordering it a few times online, and I keep getting hoodwinked. They keep sending me a version that's not that version. I keep thinking I'm buying that edition, and I don't get it.
Interesting.
So if you happen to have the edition that I'm talking about and you don't want it anymore, I'll pay you a crisp $20 bill.
Whoa!
I will drop $20 on that one if it's the edition I'm talking about. I'll figure it out what the actual number is for it, but
And don't see the movie.
no intention of it.
Did not end up there, but it's interesting. Not interesting. It's fortuitous that you brought that up, because here we are talking about books. I would like to write a book that is, it's a biography of Reese Witherspoon's life, and it's going to be called Reese's Pieces. And
So you want to write it because of the title?
yeah, I'm going to start there and work my way back. And the cover art is a puzzle, but it's Reese Witherspoon as the puzzle. So it's
From one of her movies?
No.
Oh, it's got to be from Election.
No. Oh, which is easily
gotta
the
be from
best
Election.
Reese Witherspoon movie. That movie, you know what that movie does perfectly, the movie Election?
Everything?
The guy who plays the principal, who's a favorite of Alexander Payne's, nails what a principal is.
I'm trying to remember who it is.
Here's the thing. I hate to say forgettable or a nobody, but he's just a guy.
What?
Who's in a lot of stuff that you might recognize, but he's got this moment where they're giving their final speeches to the crowd in the gym, and she's up there and she starts talking, and some guys yell some stuff, and he kind of pushes her aside and doesn't raise the microphone. It's at a high school kids, and he leans down and he goes, hey now. He goes, do you want this to end? Do you want me to treat you like children? Because if you act like children, I'll treat you like children. But if you act like adults, I'll treat you like adults. And it's every single principal interaction I ever saw at a symposium ever. Like, all right, kids, we're really lucky to have so-and-so here today. She can balance 20 basketballs.
You just made me flash back to 7th grade. And
Really?
my dad. This was the worst thing that could happen to you in 7th grade if your dad was one of the teachers at the school. It was Halloween, and the 9th graders, which was the drama, when you could take drama class, the 9th graders would put on a haunted house every year up in like the upper catacombs of the theater. And so what they would do is your whole class, and my class was probably 300 people, so we filled the theater. And you would sit there, and then they would take you up like 10 at a time to go through the haunted house. And in the meantime, we would watch Jumanji with starring Robin Williams. And of course, none of us want to watch Jumanji, and we're all 7th graders. We're all hyped up on Mountain Dew or whatever, and it's we want to go do something else. And so everyone's talking, and people are being loud and obnoxious. And my dad is in charge of like everyone at this thing, and so he pauses the movie. And he walks on stage, and he just crosses his arms and he just stares at the audience. Just looks out as disappointed and angry as he can possibly look until the audience gets quiet, which took like 2-3 minutes. And then he gave a lecture very similar to that one. And he had to do that 3 or 4 more times that day because as soon as he'd get off stage, we'd all just pick up again.
Right.
I wanted to die because people were like, was that your dad? No.
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 And your dad thought, what if Robin Williams were to walk in right now? Or more likely, what if Bonnie Hunt were to walk in right now?
One thing that dad is good at, though, is scolding.
Oh, yeah?
My dad is very good at scolding. He has what I call his teacher voice. And I've known about it since I was a little kid because he would use it with me, or I'd see him use it with adults if they were being jerks. Dad, for some reason, has the ability to let you know, no, I'm serious now, and this is serious, and you're in trouble. And I've seen him get full-grown adult men, just in his hand, just like, oh, you're right, I'm in trouble. I got to listen to you now. That's a very specific superpower that my dad has. That I don't know another adult who has it to that degree.
Your dad is a pretty amazing educator.
Oh, yeah.
And so I can imagine his
Amazing
teacher
teacher.
voice is really top notch.
He's the kind of teacher that you don't want to disappoint. Like if you hate your teacher, you don't care that they're mad at you, but everyone liked him. So they were always upset if they would disappoint him. But also he was good at meeting kids where they were. You know,
yeah, that's the thing is your dad has the ability to have plain speaking and can, you know, he doesn't understand all the things going on with kids. And that's the great thing of a teacher is someone who can get down to a student's level and understand where they're coming from and remember that, you know, this is the most important thing to them right here, right now.
I can't imagine being a teacher or even a substitute teacher, like the work that I know. Or what does Phil do right now in the school system?
Phil, our guest today, Phil Godel, is the tech director for North High. So he's in charge of all the technical theater kids, as well as maintaining the facility of their auditorium.
Okay, so that's not too bad. But I mean, dealing with kids every day, that would drive me insane. I don't have the fortitude to deal with that. Really? Phil does, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I admire someone who can do that. I don't have that superpower.
You don't?
Nope. No.
Well, maybe you can learn something from our guest today. Maybe Phil will rub off on you in more ways than one.
He has before. He shall again.
Well, on that note, let's welcome Phil Godel, who's a good friend of mine. I've known Phil for over a decade and is one of the most loyal, one of the hardest working, and one of the kindest human beings I have ever met in my entire life. I can truly say I don't know if I could have Linebenders, if I could have the pub quiz, if I would have my job in radio. I don't know if any of that would have been possible if Phil hadn't been there as like the ultimate number 2.
He's the glue.
He is the glue. He's the good glue. He's not the crap stuff you buy. He's the Gorilla brand glue.
Yeah.
That goes on purple but dries clear.
You have enough time to get it to set. You're not like too worried about it, but you know once it's set, it's going to be there.
It's going to be good there for a while.
Did you just fart?
No.
I smell a fart. And I know it's not me because I would have felt it.
No, you'd know if I did. I mean, the mic would have picked it up.
Well, we'll figure out who farted while the audience listens to this podcast.
I think it's just our general studio.
Okay.
Phil Godel, everybody.
JJ Meets World.
Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Philip Godel.
Hello, everybody.
So when I first met Phil, I didn't know if it was Godel, Godel, Godel. And so I mispronounced his name and I wrote it incorrectly. I misspelled it constantly.
Checks.
Yeah.
Many checks were with 2 L's or
and
2 O's.
Finally, Phil told me, hey, listen, it's like the computer Dell computers, but with a go.
Yeah.
Godel.
Like you're cheering for the computer.
When JJ writes you a check, does he put circus tent rental in the memo line?
He has before.
or body massage. I've gotten a few of those where I'm depositing a check and I get that. Really?
For secret stuff.
The memo line of a check is a blank slate opportunity to bring some lightness to this world.
I mean, before Twitter, that's pretty much all you had, right?
Oh my God, that is my Twitter. because I don't really tweet as much as I probably should. I don't understand it. And I recently was told I need to get into Snapchat, and that is just not going to happen.
I have Snapchat, but I have it more for people send me some stuff every once in a while, but not very often. I'm very bad at just taking a picture of something and going, hey, somebody might want to look at it.
I've got an app called Snapchat where you take pictures of chaps and send them to other chap enthusiasts.
What about chap lips?
Oh, that'd
Is that a different?
These are all great ideas anyone can run with. So the first thing I want to do is to start out with this. So Phil's an amazing guy because he's got a bunch of insane stories that we're going to get him to tell on this podcast. But you're also a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
Which I got to tell you, not once did Phil ever say, poor me, the world's out to get me. Just, you fought cancer.
I think I made a joke of it like the week after surgery too, didn't I? We were playing D&D and I did something bad, and everybody in the group was like, oh, come on, this is terrible. And I was like, hey guys, I had cancer.
Let's start with the story of how did you figure out that you had cancer?
Sure. So,
by the way, how old were you? Start with that.
Oh gosh, this was in 2000. Well, technically, so there was a sore on my tongue that I just thought was like a canker sore. And that was in 2012 when I first realized that, hey, there's like a sore on my tongue. So that made me 33.
Very young.
Yeah, young. And plus, I don't smoke or anything. So
you don't smoke. It's not like you have chewing tobacco.
No,
not even a big
drink,
drinker.
But I do that more or less on weekends when I'm with friends, and usually I don't overdo it either. So I don't know. One of those things, I guess. Anyway, so there was a sore on my tongue.
Just one of those things.
Yeah. So there was a sore on my tongue, and like I said, I assumed it was just a canker sore of some sort. And the main reason why I discovered it was because I like spicy sauces, like buffalo sauce. And at that time, we were doing the gastropub quiz at Fargo Billiards and Gastropub, and every time we would order chicken strips with buffalo sauce and fries. Well, I would eat these chicken strips and it would just kind of burn that area. And I just thought, well, it's one of those things. Eventually it'll go away. Well, it didn't go away. And the longer it stuck around, the more I was like, that's not good. I got to do something. So I was trying little bits of home remedies, and the internet is an amazing thing. I mean, you just type in sore on tongue, that won't go away. And like the first thing it says is cancer, cancer, cancer. So I was like, it's probably cancer. I should have this taken care of. So it had gone long enough where I was like, okay, I definitely need to go have somebody look at this because it's annoying. I asked my dentist and they were like, well, maybe your tooth is rubbing against it wrong. They grinded down my tooth a little bit just to see if that helped. It didn't. And so then I was like, okay, I need to go see somebody. So I asked my dentist, can you refer me to somebody? They sent me to the neck, throat, and mouth place in town. And they took a look at it, and then they took a little chunk off, and then they said, okay, go about your day. So I did. They gave me some they said take some aspirin or ibuprofen if there's any pain, but there really wasn't. It was just a little cut on my tongue. And since I'd been dealing with an injured tongue anyway, it was just no big deal. So they called me a couple days later, and they said, hey, can we get you in right away? So already I assumed cancer, but then when they called and said, hey, you need to come in right away, I was like, it definitely is. So they bring me in. The doctor sits down and he's got this very somber face, which I'm sure they give all the time and very good for them. So they're like, well, we've got really bad news for you. It's cancer. And me, I already assumed it. So I was like, all right, so what do we do? I already figured it out. So it was no big shock to me. So they said, well, we've got a cancer person that's right here in town that deals with neck, mouth, throat, all of that stuff. So I went to go see him. They scheduled me. This was a very quick process. I went in to have it looked at like on Thursday or Friday of one week. They called me in on Monday. And then that Friday, I was having surgery on my tongue. So it was very quick.
And they'd intended on taking a rather large chunk of the tongue. They prepped you for the fact that your speech may be permanently impaired by this.
Definitely.
We won't know until we get in there.
Yeah, we're going to take off as much as we need. And we're not going to do more than we need, but we're definitely going to take off some of your tongue. So I was like, that sucks since, speaking is part of what I do. Substitute teaching, so I got to communicate with the kids. And I'm part of the Linebenders, so doing improv. We're talking all the time, performing and making people laugh using our words.
You're even playing League of Legends online, to which
know.
you've got to communicate to the healer to get over and do something.
Let's go do Dragon. So they slice off a chunk of my tongue and they hooked me up with a couple different meds, primarily all liquid, like liquid hydrocodone. That I really didn't take. Like I took the first couple doses because I was like, these are my meds, I got to do it. So whatever. But then the more that I was looking at the meds, it said for pain. Well, for whatever they did on my tongue, they must have kind of severed or destroyed or something, the nerve endings there, or they cut off enough that the nerve endings were gone. So like a chunk, more like probably a fourth of my tongue is still numb to this day. If I push in hard enough, I could feel the under flesh underneath, but like the surface of that side, it's very numb. I don't feel anything. So I didn't take the pain meds because I couldn't feel any pain. I was like, well, why should I just take this if there's no point to it? So I had a bunch of liquid hydrocodone for a while. That I was like, this is going bad because it's just sitting on my shelf. So,
and was it almost a month where they said you're not going to, you had to go to speech therapy, right?
No, they didn't, but they said, take time, don't talk. But then after it's healed, and, I had appointments, a week afterward, a couple days after that, and so on and so forth, just so that they could take a look and everything. And they were more or less take it easy. But I still came to Linebenders practice that Monday afterward.
You sure did. And I think the only thing that I hear is you've got a little bit more of an S.
Little bit on like S and X's. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, people don't ever recognize or notice it, but I do. I notice it a lot more than anybody else does.
You also have a slight scar on your neck.
Yes.
That it's actually disappearing. It seems like every year it fades a little bit more. And you also are a man who wears facial hair. And so after the surgery, by the way, so again, Phil never complained during this whole time. He went in for a wellness checkup and they're like, bad news. We found some more cancer.
Yeah. I actually noticed it.
Phil does his own biopsies. He's got a kit.
Yeah, you could get him at Walmart. It's great. But yeah, I was substitute teaching, and I was just sitting there bored because a lot of substitute teaching is like pass out this worksheet, make them work, have them not talk, stuff like that. So I was just sitting there, and I was kind of touching my neck, and I felt like a big lump, and I was like, wait a second, that doesn't seem right. So I was supposed to have an appointment in like another couple weeks. Well, I called him and I said, hey, I found something. We should probably bump this appointment up. So we do the appointment, and sure enough, my doctor starts probing my neck, and he's like, hey, wait a second. So I was like, yeah, that's why I called you. That's why I'm here early. So he says, well, let's do a needle biopsy. And I was like, ooh, that sounds very adventurous. I don't know what that is. So he leaves. I'm sitting in the chair. He comes back and he's got this needle that you would normally imagine for a needle. Like, hey, you need to get a shot. We'll poke you in the arm. That's the kind of needle that he came in with. I was like, oh, well, that's not too bad. So he pokes it in my neck, pushes stuff in. He goes, okay, I'll be back when that numbs up. I was like, oh, that's not the needle biopsy. Okay, well, let's see what happens from here. He leaves. He comes back, 5-10 minutes later with what looked like a caulking gun. This giant, massive caulking gun with this big needle on the end. I was like, okay. And then he jabs it into my neck and like works it around as if he's really trying to dig in there and everything. And after a little bit of jabbing, and by all means, it's numb, but still you feel that pressure. That's when I start feeling a little lightheaded. And I was like, okay, I just need to breathe. And so, yeah, they take a sample and they're like, yeah, it's a cancerous lymph node. So we need to take it out. We're going to do a neck dissection on you.
Did they ever ask you if you wanted any Patch Adams treatment? They ask you if would you like someone to come in? Would you like me to wear this red rubber nose while I do the needle treatment?
But I did bring my own red rubber nose in case they needed, a little bit of, because when
They're
they
like,
told
sir,
me,
this is a hospital.
yeah, when they tell you it's cancer, I mean, they're always very somber and everything. I'm like, you guys need to lighten up. Yeah, I got a nose. So, yeah.
They're like, dear God, it's gotten to his brain.
So, yeah, they open, same deal, go in, get surgery. They do a neck dissection. But instead of leaving the same day, I was in there for what felt like a lot longer than I needed to be there. But I get it. They need to make sure the fluid flow and all of that weird stuff is going good. But I was out a lot longer than for just the tongue, which means that they had to put in a catheter, which
Lucky you.
Yeah, I know. I didn't feel it go in. They took it out before I woke up. But having had one in, the urethra, they told me afterward, when you finally do go pee, it's probably going to be very discomfortable. And it was. It was like peeing air bubbles for a while. And it was like, that's not right.
Oh, they let some air in, huh? They let some air in.
That's what it felt like.
And then he had some radiation treatment. He had a
Yes,
summer's
indeed.
worth of radiation treatment.
I know, which was actually very fun because that was our summer.
See what I mean? Oh, I love my radiation treatment. It was a blast.
JJ and I, that summer, we were building ticket booths out at WeFest. So every morning I would go in, do radiation treatment, and then
What, you
run
had
over
cancer and you had to go to WeFest?
I know. Then we would go build ticket booths every the rest of the day. It was kind of fun.
As the summer progressed, Phil and I would have this routine. Phil would do his appointment, which radiation treatment for Phil specifically was different than you would imagine. I think some people think, okay, well, chemo is a very long process. It takes a long time when you're actually in the act of chemo. But radiation for Phil, they strap him onto this little bed, zap him, and then he's out of there. So what? Your average appointment was 6-7 minutes long?
20 minutes at
20
most.
minutes?
And some of it is that, hey, you're sitting there waiting for your turn to go in. And JJ actually kind of prepared me for this because
My dad had tongue cancer, so
Yeah.
I was like, they're going to put this weird mesh shield over you, and then they'll let you keep it at the end. Phil also got tattooed at this time,
Yeah.
so he can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
No, it's the only tattoo I have. Everybody else in my family has a tattoo except for me and my dad. And so when they're like, okay, we got to tattoo you, I was like, oh, man.
So, in the tattoo is just a simple dot on his chest. It's not big. It's probably what the size of like a sharpened pencil,
head of a needle.
The head, yeah, it's very tiny. But that's how they line up the machine. So the machine like laser lines up with this dot, and so that's how you know the exact same area is being treated every single time.
And they put that mask on you to kind of hold you in.
Yeah.
And so then, it was just click, 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 click on the neck area. And according to them, they were saying, hey, that will actually help heal up the scar too. So maybe that's part of the reason why the scar is not as noticeable.
Were you hoping to be bit by an ant or a spider?
I was keeping
or
my
something?
eyes open for anything crawling around. I was like, I wonder. Tick man.
Yeah, like a wood tick.
Yeah,
like,
I get it. There's a tick that I got when building stuff at WeFest, and it just went into radiation treatment with me.
As the summer progressed, Phil lost more and more of his sense of taste. because that's part of the downside of radiation is it kills your taste buds and it affects your sinuses, so your sense of smell is broken down. And so we would drive down to DL, Detroit Lakes, every day, and then drive back to Fargo. And on the way back, we'd always stop at a gas station and pick up a pop. And
on the way
some
there,
stuff.
we would pick up stuff.
Yeah. And his tastes became more and more specific as the summer went on because he wanted something he could still taste. First of all, you lost a ton of weight.
I did.
So good for you.
I was like, man, at
Very
least there's
trim.
some good thing to radiation treatment.
But what was it? Sugar snap peas?
Sugar snap
always
peas, I could
kept
still
there.
kind of taste a
we
little
ate
bit.
a lot of those.
It
We ate a lot of
wasn't
those.
solid, but yeah, that was a go-to. Strong coffee, I could still taste. And so I'd put some vanilla creamer in there, some cinnamon, just try to anything. And then, drink coffee the way there.
It was a sad day the day he was like, well, Mountain Dew doesn't taste good anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that was so. It was a weekend, so of course, radiation treatment is a Monday through Friday thing. You don't do weekends.
Okay.
And so I went camping with some friends one weekend, and I had a bag of dill pickle chips and dill pickle potato chips. Old Dutch. Anything else is not quite right. And
you heard it here, folks. That is a glowing endorsement for Old Dutch brand dill pickle
Indeed.
chips.
And maybe that's just what I grew up on, and so that's what I go for. But yeah, those were the ones that I had, plus this big thing of Mountain Dew. So we're driving along, and I was like, you know what? I think it's about time to open these dill pickle potato chips up. Crack them open. I put one in my mouth, chew on it, and I was like, it doesn't taste like anything. That is weird. I was very disappointed because I love the salty dillness of those chips. It's great. But I couldn't taste it. So then I was like, well, I guess I'll just wash it down with some Mountain Dew, crack that open, take a swig. And I was like, that just tastes weird. I mean, the chips tasted like nothing. The Mountain Dew just tasted like sour or just weird, not quite a Mountain Dew. And so I was like, great, I have a Mountain Dew and dill pickle chips that I don't want anything a part of anymore because I can't taste them. So that was...
But let me guess. You still finished the chips and the Mountain Dew.
I think I finished the Mountain Dew. I think I just kind of donated the chips to everybody
group?
else that was there. It's like, hey, guys.
Phil is also frugal, or some might call it cheap.
Yeah.
Miserly is another term I've heard.
Miserly implies that they have a lot of money.
Well, at one point, you easily, of all the members of Linebenders, you had the most socked away in the bank.
Oh, definitely.
Because you're good at saving.
Yeah, I am very frugal. I get that from my parents, buy stuff when it's on sale, or, get the generic kind, because for a lot of generic stuff is almost identical to regular stuff. So
what about off-brand dill pickle chips?
Pickles, you got to go with Old Dutch.
So no great value dill pickle chips for you?
I actually had Rachel brought the generic kind, that essential every day. I was impressed that it actually was pretty close to Old Dutch. So I imagine they were like, hey, Old Dutch, what's your recipe?
Ridges or no ridges?
No ridges.
Do you want to know a secret about some generic brands?
Sure.
It's the exact same. It's just a packaging difference. For example,
That I believe.
there is a company around here that creates a very sweet product that is tilled up from the earth that shares it's sugar beets.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at here. And there are several companies that just purchase that product and put it in their own
Sure.
bags.
So essential every day.
Same thing like with my dad's old sunflower company. There'd be people who'd buy product and just pop it in their own store brand bag, something like that.
Called white labeling.
Is that what it's called?
Yep.
That's why it's always funny when people are like, oh, have you tried? Never do the generic. It's so terrible compared to the regular. Well, I wonder how many things they are exactly the same, just a different packaging, but they can taste the difference.
Yeah, it just shows you the power of the marketing behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sometimes shocked at the fact that companies have become so smart in making us purchase things that otherwise would be garbage. For example, you ever have Cheez-Its?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I love
So
Cheez-Its.
The best thing ever.
Recently they started the way of the Oreo cookie, which is you can get Fiesta Cheez-Its that have a taco seasoning on them, and
Bacon
you can get
Cheez-Its.
Exactly. Well, they also have they're called like burnt crispy Cheez-Its, and they're Cheez-Its that are super dark because they accidentally burn batches on the regular. That happens with things like this.
Oh, okay.
And usually they throw them away.
They
I
usually
imagine.
throw them away, but some Jesus
Jesus was
comes down from the heavens. Hey, everybody! Don't throw them.
idea.
He took one batch of burnt Cheez-Its and fed an entire nation with them.
I'll take these, or I'll take these store brand Cheez-Its and turn them into name brand Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its, Jesus. Anyway, the story's been derailed. So let's go to this. Here's another story I'd like our listeners to hear, Phil.
Sure.
I knew Phil for several years. I met Phil in 2006.
Yeah.
When he auditioned for Linebenders, and it took, I'm going to say 4 years, maybe 5 years of knowing Phil, because you knew Phil before I did. You were in Tony and Tina's wedding together.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Your dad directed it.
Oh my
and
God, I forgot that's how we met.
I remember you were singing "Iran."
Yep.
Very, very passionately.
So one day, years into our friendship, Phil casually mentions like, "Oh yeah, and my ex-wife, da 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 da," and we all kind of went, "Uh huh." And then, holy shit, did you hear that? Phil was married. Did you know Phil was married? I had no idea. What? And no one had the balls to ask him about it. So
yeah.
So finally, Phil and I are driving home from Valley City State University, where we had done an improv workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, Phil, listen, I'm going to be the one to ask. So you have an ex-wife?" Because this whole time I've known him, you've never dated.
No.
You know, you never had a woman, never had a guy.
That you know of.
Right. So I finally get the balls to ask him about his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil tells me the story of how they met and
At Valley City.
at Valley City. In fact, give us the highlights.
The
of,
meet cute?
Yeah.
So I was the lead role of the play Our Town by Thornton Wilder. I was the stage manager. The character is called the stage manager. Long monologues on stage for the majority of the play. And she was just kind of a background extra. She had one or two lines. She's in the graveyard scene, just sits there and looks pretty and says a couple lines. And that was it. She was 17 and a high school student, whereas I was a junior in college. Of course, me going to the theater stuff, I was like, oh, hey, everybody here's in college. You know, I never thought of, oh, hey, some of these people might not be. But Dr. Kelly was always very gracious in saying, hey, we're putting on a play. Let's get people from the community and the high school and whomever is interested come audition, and you never know what might happen. So, yeah, she was in the play, and, you know, in the roundabouts way, you start talking to people and flirting, and we started dating.
I would love to see you flirt. I have no idea what it would look or sound like.
It's very awkward. And yeah, we started dating the Sunday after it closed. So,
and what did her parental units think
her
of
mom,
of you dating, you know, her 17-year-old daughter dating a 20-year-old, 21-year-old?
Was she a junior or a senior in high school?
She was a senior.
Okay.
And she was actually taking college classes.
Okay.
So it was one of those kind of seniors where, hey, the majority of their stuff is at the high school, but they're also going to college to get a jump on it.
Got it.
Yeah, she wasn't very pleased at first because I remember going over there, I think it was probably the Friday night, because me, her, and one of her friends just went walking around little Valley City town, you know, because what else are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And we went back to her place and we watched an episode of something. This is before TiVo. So, I mean, I'm sure it was just on TV, or it's probably we threw in the VHS and watched something. I don't even remember what it was. But I remember meeting her mom and later on, she goes, I knew you were trouble right away. It's like, this can't be good. She's bringing some guy home. It's trouble.
So let's fast forward to my favorite part of Phil's divorce.
I was wondering. I was like, wow. So this story so far hasn't too scandalous.
Yeah.
Yet. Why is he openly? Why are you making him openly share?
So this is what I think is great. What musical artist do you not care for because it reminds you of your divorce?
I dislike Neil Diamond.
So whenever you're at a wedding and people start going ba ba ba,
yeah, I don't do the ba ba ba.
Phil kind of
Oh,
cringes
Mary.
a little bit.
Is it just a
I'm like-
dream that I dreamed the other night?
From the boats and on the planes.
We're coming to America.
So please, Phil, share with our listeners
the story.
why Neil Diamond caused your divorce.
Hey, Tugger, I'm gonna have Phil come in to the podcast. I'm gonna make him talk about how he got cancer twice, and about the time he got divorced.
Yeah, it's great. They're fun stories.
He's smiling the whole time. So
Okay, so her mom, she and her were very close because her dad died when she was young.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lived in Oregon. They moved to Valley City because her mom got remarried to an abusive alcoholic. So they got out of that. And then it was just the two of them. So a lot of our dating dealt with, hey, her mom kind of hanging out because, they were pretty close. And it's a little awkward, but I liked her too. Not the same way that I liked Allie, but, she was nice to have.
Allie being Phil's ex-wife.
Yes. And so we definitely included her in a lot of things, including, so her mother was an avid fan of Neil Diamond. Like she loved him. She tried to get me into it. And at that point, I grew up with classic rock, but my parents never listened to Neil Diamond. And I recognized Sweet Caroline, but I didn't really know it. I just recognized that it was a song that I had heard at some point in my life, but I didn't know any Neil Diamond. So they're trying to get me into some Neil Diamond, but nothing that really stuck, nothing that really clicked with me.
There's really nothing worse than someone loving something passionately and trying to get you to love it as passionately.
Yeah, I know. So I forget if it was a birthday present or a Christmas present or something, we had gotten her mom tickets to go see Neil Diamond here in Fargo when he was here back in 2002, I think it was. And since most of the time we did stuff together, I was like, sure, I'll join. Why not? Why not? So we go to the concert and I don't know any of these songs. So I'm standing there. Everybody's standing, even though there's seats, lined up.
Yeah, we've been to a concert. Phil.
Yeah. And they're singing and dancing around, having a great time. And I'm standing there just kind of bouncing a little bit to the beat, not singing because I don't know the words. Didn't even know this was a song before I heard it right there.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, they would turn and look at me and just roll their eyes and look at each other and go,
Oh my God.
yeah, exactly.
You were already married at this point?
Yes, I was already married at that point.
Couple years, right?
I think we were within our first year because we got married in 2001 toward the end of the year. So, every once in a while, I'd say, what is it? What's wrong? And they were like, you're not having fun. And I said,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll start right now.
I know. I am. I just don't know this song. I mean, I'm trying. I just don't know this song. So I try to ramp it up. So I'm just bouncing around a little more than normal. And then finally, Sweet Caroline comes on. I was like, thank God, a song I kind of know. I can't sing along until it's Sweet Caroline, bop, bop, bop. But I yelled as hard as I could when it came to that part to prove to them that, yes, I am having a good time.
Show you girls.
I know. On the ride home,
Back to Valley City. 62 miles from Fargo.
They were upset with me. And I was like, what's wrong? They were like, you ruined the Neil Diamond concert because you were not having a good time. And I was like, that's not the case. I just don't know the songs. It's hard to dance to something you don't know. And they were adamant that I ruined the Neil Diamond concert.
Okay.
And then it was in the paper the next day. Local man ruined
Phil
Neil Diamond concert.
Neil Diamond is quoted, "I saw him and my heart wasn't in the show because this man kept checking his
And
watch."
my goodness, Sweet Caroline. Have you seen Neil Diamond?
Oh yeah. I'm not in person, but I know.
Yeah. But I mean, he sang like the 10-minute version of Sweet Caroline, which at the time I appreciated because I was like, good, a song I'm familiar with. But now it's like every time I hear Sweet Caroline, I'm like, ugh. I want to ruin another concert.
And so that was the
That
straw
was
broke
a
the camel's.
a big thing that was the thing that stuck with me the most. You know, there's little things, relationships. It's a two-way street. So, you know, I can't completely put all the blame on her, but I could have been a better husband here or there on certain aspects.
I don't understand the idea of being angry at someone because they're not showing the same level of enthusiasm for the thing that you are experiencing at that moment.
They were like, hey, we're all going.
Yeah.
You can come too. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go. You know, I'll be there. I'll support. I'll help. But yeah, if you're not into that something, you know, why should you expect the same amount of love?
Did you feel kind of teamed up on too? Like these,
definitely.
These two people who are, you know, mother and daughter, they're very close. It's the two of them and you.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you have no one to look to. You're on your own. They can easily team up.
Mm-hmm.
They probably can finish each other's sentences and stuff like this.
A little bit. Yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry, buddy.
And then I also, and Allie was sick, so she didn't get to go, but we went to Elton John and Billy Joel when they were here in town as well. Later that year, her mom and I, and somebody else, I can't remember who we brought because, you know, we had that third ticket and you want to use it. And I know Elton John and I know Billy Joel, so I'm singing and dancing everything. And on the trip home that time, her mom said that I was brainwashed into liking Billy Joel more than Neil Diamond.
It's a good thing you got out of that family.
Yeah, probably.
So
Although I do hope they're happy wherever they are.
I don't. I hope that they are fucking miserable. I hope Neil Diamond shows up, takes a shit on the lawn, and said "fuck you" from Phil, and then leaves. That's what I hope happens.
One of my favorite episodes of South Park is the Scott Tenorman episode where Radiohead shows up and he loves Radiohead, and they start making fun of him. They're like, "Look at this dopey kid.
He's crying.
He's crying. Hey there, cry baby," because he just ate his parents in a chili, mind you.
Yeah.
But I want Neil Diamond to do that, to show up and be like, "Hey, are you Allie's mom?" "Yes, I am." He goes, "Well, guess what? You suck."
Every time, because this is a popular song, especially at weddings. So every time it pops on, everybody's singing along. And instead of ba ba ba, I say suck my cock. And then it's like, what's the lyrics? Good times never feel so good. That's how I feel. Like, good times never feel so good. It's not that great.
I'm always
and then
gonna
everybody's
sing that
like, for you, or I don't remember what they say, but I say fuck
So good.
you.
So
yeah,
good.
so good.
So good.
And everybody's saying that, and I say fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Good for you.
I know.
I haven't had that experience, but I've dated a lot of girls who love the Beatles.
Oh,
I
yeah?
was gonna bring that
And
up.
so now for me, I can't say I have anything against the Beatles, but
Yeah.
boy, do I could give a shit about the Beatles.
You know,
I really could.
and that's how I feel about Neil Diamond. You know, he's
He didn't
a musical
divorce you.
genius.
He didn't.
Apparently,
He didn't get mad at you for not having fun at his concert.
No, I mean, it's not like I was gonna take off my boxers and throw it on stage. He's got enough panties.
There's so
to get
many
flung at him.
Something about young women who get into the Beatles. For some reason, at some point, they say, "I was just born in the wrong era." I was like, "Oh, really? That's what you would prefer
Yeah.
to be back there?"
Have you never watched Mad Men?
I was just, if only I could have been alive during the Beatles time.
Yeesh.
Go for it. You know?
And actually, Allie was a avid fan of the Beatles too. Although it hasn't soured the Beatles for me.
Yeah.
Because
You'd already
I
listened
already
to the Beatles.
listened to the Beatles. So
One time I was taking a bunch of people down to the Shooting Star Casino, and Phil was driving separately.
I can't
And
even remember why.
that's when we
it's
had
hard to remember why one would go there.
know.
Yeah, it was a company Christmas party for us, for the Linebenders.
Oh.
And so we all brought like 80s prom clothing, and we walked around and we got a couple rooms.
It's great.
But I was at a gas station as we were leaving, and I was like, Phil, if I bought this jar of pickles, do you think you could eat the whole thing by the time we get to the Shooting Star Casino? And it was a fairly
substantial
large
size
jar of dill, like mini gherkin pickles. And he kept updating us as we were going. It was 26.
Back in the day when
42.
texting and driving was okay.
But it was probably a T9 still, right? You're the T1 or whatever. So you're like having to push.
I never
buttons.
got into the T9. I was always like, I gotta press this button 3 times to get to the letter that I want.
So as we got closer, Phil's like, I finished all the pickles. And I'm like, well, you're still not done with that jar, are you? You still got to drink the juice. Up your electrolytes.
There you go.
You know, speaking of Shooting Star, I worked in poker TV for a long time, spent a lot of time in different casinos. Shooting Star Casino is the only casino. And I've been to casinos in Gary, Indiana, Philadelphia, right? It's the only casino I've ever been where there are signs in every hall letting you know that drug-sniffing dogs will be patrolling throughout the day.
Wow, that's ominous.
Yeah, they have drug-sniffing dogs just walking through.
I do kind of like Shooting Star. Remember when we went there to do Tony and Tina's?
Yeah, and then we got all that
so
easy
many
cheese.
easy.
So yeah, when Phil and I did Tony and Tina's wedding, which character were you playing?
I was Joey, the gay brother.
The gay brother. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were Joey, the gay brother. I was the band leader of Fusion, and we did. It's a dinner theater style show.
Yeah.
And we did one performance of it at Shooting Star in this big banquet room. And for whatever reason, on every table in the banquet room, they put a can of American Easy Cheese.
And some crackers.
But the guests touched almost none of it.
Yeah.
And so at the very end of the show, our friend Adam Peterson starts like grabbing cans, and he ends up with...
He got a garbage bag from one of the janitors and is like, can I take these? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. Picture 2 full cupboards in a kitchen just filled with American Easy Cheese. And that's what he ate then and we all ate as we would hang out at his place.
I took some home. He was like, I was like, can I have a few of those? He goes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I took a pile home. That's the frugalness in me right there. Can I have some of that Easy Cheese that somebody obviously already used, but it's still on a table?
I just also remember doing like tequila shots in the bus on the way there and on the way back and all that fun.
I didn't come back. I stayed the night there with the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil and I also built the snack bar at Shooting Star Casino.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the same summer you had cancer, if I'm not mistaken. So Phil and I did some construction together, specifically commercial kitchen stuff. And so they were putting in a new little mini snack bar area. So we were
lots
there.
of industrial equipment.
Yeah, lots of stainless steel, stuff like that. And so Phil and I built that, and they had these giant umbrellas that they needed to put in.
That, if I recall right, they were very expensive, and then they were all destroyed in a windstorm.
Yeah, like a week after they got them.
because they didn't take them down or something.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see a TV series where the two of you are, but you're living in like medieval times, right? And you are traveling performers, and you go from inn to inn, and you improv for your supper. And you're trying to explain to them what like the different improv terms are.
Is that a horse I see?
Actually, I had I had an idea for an improv series that I really wanted to do called Time Capsule, where the day before a show, the audience would vote via Twitter and say what era they would like the show to be set in. And then we would do a show like it was in that era. So it's not like we'd be doing a bunch of jokes about the 1960s. It would just happen to be a show set in the 1960s. So we wouldn't reference cell phones.
Got it.
You could only reference stuff there. And so
Like
you could
the
do
Beatles.
like the Beatles. And so
And
you
Neil
could do
Diamond.
one that was, the Renaissance. And so if you went to a Renaissance improv show.
It's like when the dude gets into a taxi cab and the Eagles are playing. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And you have to watch who you say that around because they will kick you out of their cab.
Yeah.
Phil,
Yes.
what do you think about hot dogs?
I love hot dogs.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Do you prefer hot dogs or brats?
I kind of prefer I prefer brats. if there was a hot dog and a brat and somebody says you can only have one, I would go for the brat. I feel like the brat has more substantialness to it. It's usually not just like ground up completely, and so you could pretty much bet that it is pork in there. And I think they're delicious, but that does not diminish my love for hot dogs as well.
Of course.
But I also do not like condiments.
Oh, so you just eat it straight dog.
Yeah, when I have a hot dog or a brat, I am eating that and the bun.
Gotcha. Raw dog in it.
Actually, I get to tell a story about Phil now that was told to me. So this is secondhand. Phil bought my house.
Yeah.
When I moved into my mom's home after she passed, I needed to sell my house. And I thought, God, selling a house sucks because I'm the king of doing projects to about 90% completion and never really finishing. And I thought, I'm going to have to finish all these friggin' projects before I sell this thing. And Phil had been flirting with the idea of getting a house. And he was sick of throwing money away. How long did you live in your apartment up at Trollwood Manor?
10 years.
10 years.
A little bit over 10 years.
Wow.
It was a cheap apartment, frugal. And I hate moving.
Yeah.
I hate gathering, packing everything away, and then moving it to a different location and then having to unpack it. I hate moving. Thus, why I lived in that apartment for 10 years.
Yeah, you and I
Plus,
are
it was cheap rent.
opposites.
Yeah. Tucker,
You and I are opposites.
Tucker, I think, moves every time a stiff wind blows.
Yeah, and there are a lot of stiff winds blowing.
He's got these teal-colored tubs that I have helped him move hundreds of times.
A lot of use out of those tubs.
Yeah.
So, I tell Phil, I'm like, well, you want to buy my house? Phil goes, well, yeah, that sounds good.
I helped remodel some of it.
Yeah. Phil was a big part of like the house, and it's a great house, and it's got great bones. And
since you had it, I knew that you wanted it.
right,
And
you
so
knew I wasn't making meth in there the whole time.
Exactly.
So, and I told Phil, I was like, I'm selling it as is. Don't ask for a carpet allowance. Don't ask, like it's as is. So it's like, sounds good. And I'm like, I found a great chump to buy this house.
But I also knew that, all I had to do is ask, and JJ would help me finish some of his projects.
Yep. Like, for instance, we're going to finish a window sometime this summer.
I would assume, though, but obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but because it's really close to a school, property value
Right
on that
across the
thing is
street.
probably going to stay pretty decent, I would assume.
Oh yeah. It's he for the price he paid for it, he already walked into equity.
Nice.
Because
Nice.
it's below its we sold it below its what was considered
Market
the
price.
taxable value.
Yeah.
I'll actually be your neighbor here shortly.
Really?
Just really close. I mean, not right next to you, but about 3 or 4 blocks west of you.
Okay.
On 8th.
Oh, sure.
My mom's house is there. She is moving out to the East Coast for a couple of years, and so I'm moving into her house to take care of her while she's gone.
The three of us will be right in that little neighborhood.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll bike to each other's homes for hot dogs.
Two of us living in our mom's house, and you and JJ, who's basically your mom. So we're pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
So Phil immediately, because he's frugal and he's also smart. He's a smart man when it comes to money. He says, "Well, I've got other bedrooms. I'm gonna get some roommates, and so they can help take down the burden of the mortgage and and share everything." And so Britta Nelson, who's a guest, a previous guest on this podcast,
Has the most listened to episode of JJ Meets World so far.
Nice.
Tucker has a theory that any podcast image that includes a female picture on it get more views right off, or get more listens.
Data to back that up.
Let's find a picture of a girl to stand in my place for this and see if that works. Then.
Or just a female body with your head on it.
Yeah, they're
Well, I was already picturing a picture of Neil Diamond with a circle and an X running through it. So we might stick with that, but we'll see. Who knows?
yeah,
Who knows
So,
what happens?
Britta moves into the house with Phil, and
we built her room in the basement.
Phil and Britta now have a pseudo married relationship. Where, in all honesty, she'll say things like, "Well, Phil needs cough medicine, so I have to stop at Target on the way home." Or they ride together everywhere. It's very cute. It's very adorable. It's very platonic.
I picked up bananas.
Yeah. So Britta comes into work one day at the radio station. She goes, "You've got to hear what I walked in on today." And I said, "I can't wait." She said, "Well, Phil's not feeling well." And you can tell when Phil's not feeling well because he wears his glasses.
Except on Sundays. I kind of take Sundays as a day off from contact.
Yeah. Right, because he's been partying so hard, so he's gotta get going. So Phil's not feeling well, and he made himself some chicken broth to drink, and they decided he needed a little protein to up that, and so he makes nukes a hot dog.
Boil.
Oh, he boils a hot dog, but he doesn't put it in a bun. He just eats a loose hot dog. And he chooses not to dirty a plate, so he is holding the hot dog in his fingers, eating it over the sink. When Britta comes down and he's wearing his glasses and he kind of looks like, like hell. And so now I always ask Phil, like, oh, you had a hot dog? Do you have a loose hot dog?
Had a bun.
So when he's over here talking about, like, I'm a man, I don't like condiments, I like a hot dog in a bun, be like, nay, sir.
I like hot dogs without a bun even.
Mm-hmm. Just eat a raw
raw
dog in it.
You just want.
How long, in your mind, could you keep hot dogs in a freezer and still eat them?
You throw them out?
Right. So that's the answer. So indefinitely.
Are you saying do not freeze a hot dog?
No, if it's in the freezer, eat it whenever you eat it.
So if
you're saying it doesn't go bad,
it doesn't. It's frozen. I realize that there's freezer burn, but freezer burn more or less just degenerates the quality. You could still eat it. It's not like it's poisonous, right?
So if you saw Best Buy April 2014 on that hot dog case, but it's been in the freezer the whole time.
It's been in the freezer the whole time.
Who the fuck is getting hot dogs at Best Buy?
Wait, they don't have a hot dog section?
I mean, really, they need to diversify, though, because electronics are not what they used to be.
What they need is a brat stand.
They do need a brat stand.
That's what they need is a brat stand.
Would you eat those hot dogs?
Oh, definitely. If they've been in the freezer, it's not like they've spoiled.
Well, how would you check to make sure that they're okay?
I guess I wouldn't.
You just throw them on the grill, or would you boil them to give them a little sniff?
No, they've been in the freezer this whole time.
And there's really no condiment at all. No condiment. Nothing.
I like barbecue sauce.
Okay.
And buffalo sauce.
And like the spicy buffalo type sauce.
Because my niece just discovered relish for the first time the other day and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I don't eat relish, but it just seems to me like a hot dog is part of eating a hot dog is condiment use.
Like I like relish too, but that's because it's basically a chopped up pickle, and I love pickles.
Mm. You ever see that when Burger King started offering hot dogs, they had Snoop Dogg do these series of commercials?
I don't remember.
Where he's
that.
like, it's a Burger King hot dog. Did you know that relish is just chopped up pickles?
It is. I tell you what, to kind of loop back to radiation treatment, that first time I tried a pickle after taste had barely started coming back and I could actually taste it. It was the best pickle I've ever eaten, which is why I feel like I do prefer salty over sweet, because I couldn't taste sweet for quite a while afterward, but it was more important to me to taste that pickle.
I've never been into. I cannot eat pickles. I hate pickles.
Really?
I hate pickled anything. Anything that's been pickled.
Thus no relish.
Thus no relish. Looks gross to me. Smells gross to me.
Tucker doesn't even like people who've become pickled.
No. I'm super racist against pickled people. What was I going to ask now? Oh, I was just going to mention that when it comes to condiments and sausages, my favorite would be JJ's nightmare scenario. Ugh. Because I like brats with mayo and mustard.
Ugh.
Oh,
I'm with JJ on this. I dislike. I hate mustard and I hate mayo.
Mayo and mustard together goes really well.
One of my nightmare travel experiences. I was flying down to Georgia to visit my cousin who lived down there, and my plane got canceled for the day I was supposed to go out. So they pushed it to exactly one day later, and then that one got delayed and then rerouted somewhere else, and eventually I found myself in Newark Airport, and it's already 2 days past when I was supposed to be there, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I gotta eat something. So I eat what looked like a pizza place, but it really kind of was. It was more of lavash. And I said, I'll get that one. I start eating it, and the first bite, I was like, this is not like a pizza sauce. This is some kind of mustard-based sauce. And
Yummy.
it was just absolutely disgusting. But I was also like, I spent $17 for this little piece of shit. I am going to do what I can to eat as much of it as I can. And
Were you in an
I
airport?
threw most of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I threw most of it away. But I
Enough,
did
enough
eat
to keep you alive.
enough to keep me alive and to get me to Georgia
and
the
at
rest
that
of the
same
way.
time, they're like,
Ladies and gentlemen of the Newark Airport, we have a very special announcement. Neil Diamond is here right now, and he's going to be giving a free concert. We're going to play over the loudspeaker. Brother Love's Travel and Salvation Show.
He also recently became a certified minister. So if anyone would like to get married by Neil Diamond right here at the terminal, and then free complimentary hot dogs with mustard.
that is a nightmare.
And you know me being frugal, throwing away that thing
Was tough.
was tough, which
It
is
was
why
tough.
I ate as much of it as I did.
Let's also talk about your affinity for reading and walking at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's definitely a
So-
skill.
Yeah.
Because Phil is
Yeah.
North Fargo famous. He lived in the Trollwood Manor apartments for 10 years. What year did you move into that?
Moved in 2006.
2006.
Yeah.
And so lived there until 2016. And people would tell me about this guy wearing a Looney Tunes jacket, denim jacket, walking around who... Did it have Looney Tunes on it? No,
didn't.
No. It
But
had your name. It had an
it had-
embroidered Phil
Yeah.
in it. And they're like, there's this guy walking around in a denim jacket who's reading a book while he's walking around. For example, Mike and Adele Page, the people who own Fargo Billiards and Gastropub, would comment like, I think we saw Phil, but it was a weird circumstance. He was walking and reading a book at the same time.
Yeah.
Phil's an avid reader. And so
I've always got a book.
And you walk around and read.
Yeah,
Now, have you ever taken any spills, any dips?
No, I've come close a couple times, like trip over just a little bit of something. But really, I mean, I'm focused on reading the words, but I'm also paying attention to the peripherals. So I'm looking like a little, I'm reading the words, but I'm also kind of paying attention to what's coming up in front of me in the sidewalk. And so I could see if there's something weird. But every once in a while, you know how you get a little uneven sidewalk here or there. There's just a little bit of a jut coming out. And it's almost gotten me a couple times, but I've never actually spilled while. It's a lot easier to do with a paperback than a hardcover book, too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
that
because
makes sense.
hardcover books are bigger, and especially if you're reading Stephen King like I do, some of them are really thick, and so they're harder to hold.
Have you read every Stephen King novel?
No, but I am close.
What's your favorite?
It.
Yeah.
Easily.
What'd you think of the It Part 1?
I thought it was amazing. I thought it veered away a little bit from the actual book, but in a
Especially
good, appropriate way.
Because they didn't all have sex in the sewer.
Exactly. That too. But yeah, I mean, and when you're trying to translate such a hefty tome into a movie, you got to make cuts. And I know that they wanted to make the adult version of it in the current times. So instead of taking place in the 50s and them being adults in the 80s, it was their kids in the 80s and now they're adults now.
Today.
So I feel like the 80s version of it was very appropriate and worked out very well. The soul of the movie, the soul of the book is still there and was very creepy and frightening. And I think this next chunk is going to be very good, although I do think it's going to take some really different and imaginative courses, because just looking at technology alone, you know they're going to all have smartphones, and there's going to be one creepy, weird Pennywise thing with a smartphone.
Pennywise app?
Maybe.
Do you have an app already called Pennywise for being frugal and cheap?
No, but that sounds great.
Yeah, like be like, come on, we got savings on paper boats.
This, you could buy this bag of chips for a penny cheaper.
We all
You just got to
save
drive
down
across
here.
town.
Everything floats. When you've got brand new water wings. Phil, what's a story not embarrassing, because that would insinuate that everything I made you say today is embarrassing.
No.
But what's a story about me that I should tell people that since I made you tell all those personal stories today?
How about did you tell the story of your going away party at the Fargo Theater?
I don't think I touched on that yet.
Because I was there. That's another one semi-embarrassing for me.
I don't think I
because
know this.
At the Fargo Theater, JJ was. Where were you going? You
I
were
was
going
moving to Chicago.
back to Chicago.
Yeah.
And so you had a little bit of a going away party.
I had a heck of a going away
Yeah, it
party.
was great. I was there, and you once again dared me to consume something. It was a big cup of sweet and sour sauce, which I did.
Because we had gotten Chinese food.
Yeah.
So we had a big cup of sweet and sour sauce. There was also a girl who worked at the Fargo Theater who hadn't worked there very long, but was very artistic, and she made a piñata that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, this is awesome. So I've got a picture with me in the JJ piñata. He's wearing a little Hawaiian
Is
shirt.
that the one that was filled with mustard packets?
Yeah, that's the thing. So we cracked that thing open. I'm so excited, and all of a sudden the stench hits my nose. Well, she had filled it with mustard packets. So when we cracked it open, all this mustard had squirted everywhere.
And you were like, yay, what's in here? And you kind of dove for it too. And then you're like,
I don't even like when mustard accidentally touches my skin because I feel like I'm absorbing some of it. But that going away party was a heck of a good time. Phil throws himself a birthday party every year that is always just a wonderful, wonderful time.
I got to the age where I'm like, I don't want to wait for somebody else to throw me a party. I'm just going to throw my own party and invite people. And then they can come have fun with me instead of me waiting for somebody else to do something. Because that tended to be a little bit of my social life for a while, as I would sit around at home and wait for somebody to say, hey, let's do something. And I would sit at home and wait. And so I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to just sit and wait. I want to have a good birthday party. So I'm going to host it and throw it and organize it.
You also bring up a good point, Tucker, in the fact that I am sort of like a mother to Phil. Now, Phil's got a wonderful mother and a wonderful dad. In fact, and he's got a great grandma, and his aunt. I've got a good chance to meet a lot of Phil's family, and they're all really, really good people.
Especially because you were the videographer for my brother's wedding just this last.
Yes. Which was
January.
half in English and half in Chinese.
Yeah.
Found that to be just incredibly interesting.
Although it did take it was a long ceremony. Like
But
some people make fun of Catholic ceremonies because it's like you're going to church.
Yep.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
usually about an hour long. This beast was an hour 45, something like that.
Yeah, I thought I had enough battery, and at one point I had to do a quick changeover.
Favorite wedding ceremony was Greg Carlson and Katie Smith's. Took 2 minutes, happened before any of us got there.
Yep.
And then we all just showed up and it was reception time.
And Greg had pre-made all the CDs, so the playlist was ready to go, and it was a good combination
That's
of
the way
a
you do
lot
it.
of stuff. There were
Yeah.
TV themes included with it, I believe.
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride in the person that Phil is because I feel like I've got a lot of influence on him.
A little bit.
let's go-
I'm very influent.
Yeah, you're very gullible. And Phil and I had the pleasure of hosting the Gastro Pub Quiz at Fargo Billions Gastro Pub, which was a trivia night. We
Yeah.
were approached by the owner and would you guys like to do a trivia night? Well, we've never done that before. Well, I'm sure you guys could do something fun.
Do you no longer do that? Or
So I still write the quiz, but I've retired from hosting it on the
Okay.
regular. So Phil is now the manager of the quiz, and Britta Nelson, his wife, goes with him and hosts alongside him. But it's one of the longest running trivias in Fargo Moorhead because is this year the eighth year?
Yeah, 8th.
8 years. Holy smokes.
I know.
There's a lot of random stuff we've shoved into a PowerPoint presentation over the years.
And although there have been questions that have been reused, some of them it's kind of the same question, but instead of asking one thing and expecting the answer, you're more or less kind of giving the answer, and it's like you're swapping
Yeah.
two bits of information.
So one might be, what is the largest lake of the Great Lakes? And then
Gotcha.
the next one is, what is the smallest lake of the Great Lakes, or Lake Erie, or order the Great Lakes from largest to smallest.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of stuff that you can rephrase a bunch of weird stuff like that.
But I would say the bulk of the questions are all, fresh or new or, something that is kind of current.
What is the secret sauce that makes trivia work? Like a trivia night? Like if you were to show up and someone was doing just a piss poor trivia night, so you had to come in and give them some advice, what would you be telling them? Some trade secrets here, I know.
Yep,
but
I've actually attended, since I've retired from hosting trivia, I've gone to other people's, and this is the biggest problem I see. Number one, personality. Phil and I banter back and forth. We had a really great like Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon thing. I would tease Phil, be like, all right, this question's about dating. Phil, you wouldn't know anything about that. And then the audience would be like, "Oh, stop picking on Phil." Phil also has a catchphrase that took off.
It is. Everybody knows.
Phil, what's your catchphrase?
It's anybody's game.
Yep. So Phil will give the scores at the top of the round. He goes, but JJ, we got a lot of questions left, and let's face it, it's still anybody's game.
I want to give them hope, especially when you're 20 points behind.
But at some point, there must be a
anybody's
mathematical impossibility to overcome, right?
Not anymore.
We've actually, our quiz has evolved over 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
So to the point of where if you have a commanding, amazing lead, but you get greedy at the end, you can lose all your points on the last question, but you can choose. The way we set it up is it's 18 questions total, 6 questions per round, 3 rounds.
The last question of each round is a wager question.
And you can wager up to half your points. You get to read the whole question before you. So if you're positive that the answer is The Sound of Music, be like, I'm going to wager all, like, up to half of my points. If you have no idea, you wager 0, and that way you don't win anything, but you don't lose anything.
Gotcha, okay.
The very last question of the game, we show you what the category is, and your team can decide if you want to play it like the other rounds, where you can see the question and then wager up to half, or before we show you the question, you can come up and say, we're betting all of our points on the last question.
So you're locked in.
You're locked
if you say
into
you're
that.
all in.
So you can either double your points or end up with 0. So let's say you've got 10 points and the leader has 25. So there's no way that you can do it, but you're gonna take a stab at it, and you go up there and you say, I'm gonna wager half my points because I don't know anything about the Olympics.
Which is the most you can do, right? Up to half your
Up
points.
to half your points if you read the question.
Got it.
But the team who's in the lead is cocky, and they're like, well, we didn't want to make sure no one like gets close to us, so we're going to bet all of our points on it. So now that leader who doesn't know the answer ends up with 0, a big old goose egg.
Gotcha.
And that other team who chose to bet only 1 point now, and even if they get it wrong, still ends up with 14, let's say, they can take the first player spot.
Or third or something.
And how do you regulate to make sure people aren't using cell phones for answers and things like that?
Great question. I've got a line that I like to use when I'm saying it, which is, first of all, everyone, don't cheat. There's no phone a friend. There's no looking answers up on your cell phone. If you go to the bathroom after every single question I have, one of 2 things is possible. Number 1, you're cheating. Number 2, you've got a urinary tract infection and you should be at a hospital right now. And you might think to yourself, there's no way that he's going to see that I'm cheating and I'm using a phone under my table. And you're absolutely correct. But you know who is? That team right next to you. And they're going to squeal like it's Deliverance. And they'll come up here and tattle on you right away.
And they have. People have come up, that team is, they're on their phone nonstop. And I was like, yeah, but you're still beating them.
Yeah.
So
We'll also have people who they'll ask their server. They'll be like, do you know the answer to this question? If the server knows it, they'll give them the answer, which I don't feel is cheating. We've also told people that electronic devices are what you cannot use to cheat. If you were to bring a full set of Encyclopedia Britannica,
Gotcha.
that would be allowable in my book.
Gotcha.
No one's taken us up on that offer.
no, I haven't seen anybody lugging those around.
Do they still make the Encyclopedia Britannica?
I think it's
in
all
paper form?
online.
It's all online now?
So, I mean, you'd have to hope that the questions were 1994 and earlier based.
Yeah. Which some of them kind of are.
Yeah. So, but getting back to your question, personality is one of the most important things. And I would also say that we write the quiz to be interactive and fun. So when
And
you go
funny.
and funny, yeah. So There, one of my favorite questions is name that stash, where we show you
Oh,
a picture of
yeah.
a famous mustache, and you need to tell us who it is. I am shocked at the number of people who are able to identify a mustache, and some of them are deep cut mustaches.
Yeah. Like somebody that you would not normally have a mustache,
Like
but they've
Walter-
had a mustache
Like
before.
Walter Cronkite is a good one.
Sure.
Where people will look at that, and you'll have 1% of the team go, Walter Cronkite. And how the hell do you know that?
I know.
But we have teams who study mustaches, who are there every single week.
I also think, along with the personality thing, a little bit of being approachable too. Like if somebody has a question, we have no problem answering it. As well as we've had people say, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And from what I've heard from other trivias, they're like, well, no, my answer sheet says this, so this is what it is. Even if they're wrong. A friend of mine had been to a different trivia, and the question was, what is the Who song that says this or something like that? And the song is called Baba O'Reilly. Anybody who knows the Who knows that the song is called Baba O'Reilly, but a lot of people who don't know the Who can think it's called Teenage Wasteland.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the big thing that they say in it, and that's what everybody recognizes it. And if you said, hey, play Baba O'Reilly, people would be like, what? But if you say, hey, play Teenage Wasteland, people, oh, I know that song. So he answered the question Baba O'Reilly, and the person said, no, it's Teenage Wasteland, and then would not give him credit for having the correct answer. Whereas if people come to us, we'll take a second, go, okay, well, we've got to rectify this some way. Mm-hmm. And either we give them the benefit of the doubt and allow them to score points on it so they're not out it.
Sure.
Otherwise, but we'll still honor like whatever, you know, if it's really a really deep cut question and it's hard to get the 100% answer, we won't say, okay, the answer that we have is wrong, so all you guys are wrong.
Yep.
But this one is definitely right. Unless it's a clear cut, yes, this is,
So
we are wrong.
We will accept both Teenage Wasteland and whatever Baba Yaga or whatever the hell you said.
Baba O'Reilly.
See, now,
Baba O'Reilly.
I would say
Teenage Wasteland is far more memorable. Anyways.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a great title. That should be the title of the song.
I know.
it's also there's a game show aspect to it. So
Yeah.
people come up and compete in these little mini games for other prizes, and the mini games can be everything from a Family Feud style question to we're gonna make you act out this scene from Laverne and Shirley, and whoever does the best version of Squiggy gets it.
We've had one where, hey, here's a whiteboard and here's a picture of Phil, best person who could draw it.
I've
And
got a
it's
lot
a
of
picture
pictures-
of me
yeah.
without a top on.
Yeah, I've got a lot of pictures of Phil in underpants. One of my favorites is we do, and this is, I think we should patent this, is the Peeps Challenge, where close to Easter, I will
Or
buy,
not.
or whatever. I mean, you can get Peeps now for every holiday, or I've just got some old friggin' Peeps, but we'll write a number on the bottom of each Peep and arrange them on a plate. And so you pull, your three teams come up for this bonus round, and they pull it, and it says 1. So you get 1 point.
Okay.
But if you'd like to
Try to
take
get a
another
better
one,
one.
you've got to eat that Peep first.
But it's got marker on it.
It's food safe, like soluble marker.
Oh,
so,
Sharpie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's food safe, right?
It is. You can consume it without being,
This is
dead.
acrylic.
and it's a small amount of.
Yeah, and I didn't put lead paint. Plus, you're eating a Peep. That should be the problem. There is that you're consuming. So we've had people eat up to like a dozen Peeps because they know that there's one thing on there that's 6 points, and they want to get to it.
Yeah.
And so,
And some people love Peeps.
yeah, but that's a lot. And then you watch it the rest of the night, and they just go, whoa.
Yeah.
Well. On that note, on the Peeps Challenge, Phil Godel, thank you very much for being our guest
Yeah, you're
on
welcome.
JJ Meets World. If people want to find you or see some of your stuff, where can they find you?
The Gastro Pub Quiz every Tuesday night. Registration opens at 6:30, which is right around the time we get there. If you register before 7, we give you an early bird point just for registering early. And the quiz starts at 7:30, and we go until we're done. It's usually about 9 o'clock. Otherwise, you could see me at Linebenders. I do shows with the Linebenders. And I'm the technical director at North High School. So if you go see a play or something at North High School, chances are you might see me somewhere.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, you're very welcome. This was fun.
JJ Meets World.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. For more info, including how you can help us keep the old lights on by donating to our Patreon, visit our website, jjmeetsworld.com, or you can hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites that everyone is using these days to connect with each other. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. And speaking of love, Courtney Love. No, I'm just kidding. Show us some love. Show us some Courtney Love by rating us on iTunes. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get a hold of JJ, you're going to cruise over to linebenders.com and book him for your holiday party because he needs money. If I check into a hotel and they tell me that the Wi-Fi isn't free, I instantly say, I'm never booking a room here again. We should just include Wi-Fi. It's a utility. You tell me you're going to charge me for water? You are? Well, I guess I won't be staying at this Best Western again.